So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to week 10, our final week of the AVCP Tribal Court Training Series. Thank you to all our participants for coming back to each week to join us. My name is Denise Nerby. I was born and raised here in Bethel. My parents are Barbara and Carl Anvil Sr., and I am the AVCP Tribal Justice Manager. So before jumping in, as usual, just running through our housekeeping items. These trainings are being recorded and will be made available on the AVCP website at a later date. I know that they've been put on our AVCP YouTube channel, so it's available there, but they will be put on our website at a later date. We're all placed on mute to begin with, as I said. We ask that you remain muted unless speaking, though we do encourage discussion and dialogue. So if you'd like to unmute yourself, please press *6 on the phone, or on the computer, press the little microphone button at the top right-hand area of your screen. This week, we are welcoming back Judge Deborah O'Gara, who is a senior policy specialist with the Alaska Native Women's Resource Center. She's going to provide a short presentation, and then we'll move forward to facilitate our tribal court judges panel. And I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and share my screen. So handing it off to you, Judge O'Gara.
Okay. Thank you so much, Denise. And I know I'm also joined here with some great judges. Eugene, Daisy May, is it Tama? Am I saying your name correctly? Who I have not had a chance to meet yet. Joe and Zita. So, oh, I like that picture. Very nice. We're all sitting at a bench, huh, Denise? I like it.
It's the panel.
Nice. So what we're going to do today is I'm just going to give some opening remarks, and then Denise and her staff have actually put together some questions that we're going to go over. And again, I want to just let folks know, I just want to second what Denise said. If anybody has any questions, you can raise your hand if you're online on the computer, or just jump in. Is it *6? On the phone, so that you can jump in and ask any questions. So I think that's, we've got plenty of time. We only have, I think, 5 or 6 questions that we want the judges to talk about, and really so that we have, really the purpose of there is so that we have an opportunity to not just listen to me, because my experience is only in one part of the state, and so that folks can, the judges who are currently sitting on the bench can share their perspective and experiences as well. Just in case nobody has met me or heard me before, I am really honored to be participating in AVCP Tribal Court Development Series. I think this is my 3rd time around, might be even my 4th time. And the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta is one of my favorite places in the state. My mom was born and raised in Mountain Village. I started going up to the Yukon, lower Yukon River when I was 6 months old, and I've traveled back and forth ever since. So that was my first airplane ride, and I've been traveling all over the state since. I've been practicing law for the last 31 years, and 15 of those years have been on the bench for the Tlingit and Haida Tribal Court in Southeast, as well as a number of other courts, including the state court. Right now, I am not sitting on the bench in Southeast. I've just contracted with a consortium of tribes in Washington State, and will be doing some appellate work for the tribes down south. And let's see, as Denise said, I'm working for the Alaska Native Women's Resource Center, which many of you I know have come in contact with or know some of our work. So let's go into the slides, and I'm going to try to run through these as quickly as possible just to give an overview of the tribal courts, or as I really like and prefer the term, tribal justice systems. And I use tribal justice systems because courts always, for me, conjure up the image of a man coming out of the chambers behind closed doors, coming up onto a bench or a judge's bench, sitting high up above all of the other people in the court in a black robe and making decisions for the parties and for the community. And I know that our traditional tribal justice systems are not inherently set up that way. Traditionally, we had much more egalitarian and fair and I think informal, but directed justice, delivery of justice that took into account a lot more than just punishment and accountability. Though those two things I truly believe were apparent, were present, but we had so much more. So in Alaska, most of our tribal communities and tribes are currently looking at, if they haven't already fully developed, tribal courts or justice systems of some kind. And there's many types. I don't remember what's on the next slide, so can I have a peek? Okay, well, that's good enough. We'll leave it on there. So there's lots of different courts. No one court in this state looks exactly the same. And there's just as many types of judges or decision makers, which is another word. Judges, decision makers can be used interchangeably, just like tribal courts and tribal justice systems can be used. And judges can be law trained, or they can be traditional cultural, have not gone to law school or even university. They can be peacekeepers, mediators, or just simply facilitators who help sit down with people and talk through a solution. I know in the years that I've been on the bench, often, especially with couples who are coming in for custody, to get custody orders for their children, I let them know that I'm there to help them make the best decision that they can for their children. And if they're not able to agree, then I'll jump in and help. But that usually they have at least started a life together and now are not able to live together, but they still have children that they can help support and raise. Our judges or decision makers can also be elders or teachers. They can also be in a much more informal capacity as our aunties or uncles or family members. In other words, our decision makers in our justice systems can be appointed, hired, paid, or just people who are natural leaders in the community that everybody goes to help solve problems. Or, as it says in this slide, any combination of these things. So I think it's important to understand, however, that once a justice system has been up and running, there are certain, and we'll get to this a little bit in the questions, and I'm really interested and excited to hear how the other judges really tackle some of these issues, because in order for our justice systems to be held in high esteem and fully respected by the members of our communities, we want them to be seen as being fair and neutral and with respect and able to make just decisions. And in that way, our judges, we want our judges to be of high integrity and highly respected people in our communities. Next slide, please. So that's always a lot of responsibility on the judges themselves as well as their family. Basic do's and don'ts, and I'm just going to read through these really quickly. First, you want to know, in order to be a judge and in order to do a good job and continue to be held in high esteem and with respect by your community, you really need to know what are the laws of your tribe, because as the judge or decision maker, that's your job, is to enforce or be guided by the laws of your community. And those laws can be written or unwritten. And some of that has been talked about in this series various times. You also want to know what the culture of the cultural values of your tribe is or are. You want to make sure that you ask questions and about anything that has happened. If the situation is being presented to you and you've got two opposing sides to the same story or the same incident, you want to be able to ask questions and then be able to make a judgment as to where is the closest truth, because sometimes it's hard to determine that. If you need more time or you need more information, you can, as the decision maker, not feel rushed into making a decision, and ask questions or ask somebody to help bring somebody in who can provide the information that you believe you need in order to make a just and correct decision. You also, and this one is important, and it goes to the integrity of not just the judge as a person, but also the integrity and the respect of the justice system. You want to consider only the relevant information. In other words, you want your decisions to not be based on rumor or one-sided stories or unsubstantiated information, meaning information or a side of a story that doesn't have any proof behind it. You also want to, and this sometimes is the hardest part, but usually if you are paying attention and watching people, watching their body language, watching their eyes, whether they're making eye contact or not, you want to not be afraid to determine who is telling the truth and who is not telling the truth. And I'll tell you, through my experience, most people that come into a tribal court setting, whether it's formal or informal, whether it's Western style or whether it's a talking circle, most people will tell the truth, or at least the truth that they believe to be the truth. And sometimes that still contradicts the other party. So it really is your job as the decision maker to determine who's closer to what really happened, and to sometimes believe both sides, but then you just take the information and weigh it and determine what's the best decision for the situation, or in the case of an interpersonal conflict, for the family or the individuals to make amends, be responsible, and then move on to in a productive and caring way. And then lastly, and then this is sometimes the hardest one to do when you're sitting on the bench or sitting in the position of a decision maker in your community, is you will never, and so don't expect to do this job of being the judge or the decision maker and expect that you are going to make everybody happy, because sometimes nobody is happy with your decision, and sometimes I do use custody situations a lot, just as an example in talks like this. But if two people who have children together come in and they want you to decide who should have custody of the children and take care of them and raise them and be responsible for them, one party may want you to do one thing and the other party want you to do the other thing, and you decide what is going to be best for the children, but also you decide what you think they can successfully accomplish. That will also be good for the children. So, so sometimes both of them may walk out not happy with your decision, but you do the best that you can, and then always go back to, and I'm just going to go back to the first thing on this list, which is you have to know what the laws, written or unwritten, of your community is and follow those. Next slide. Okay, I added this one because when I was first started off as a judge, actually when I first started off as a lawyer, and I was for a fairly long while, I was the prosecutor, which is, I think, almost as hard as being a judge. Nobody talked to me early on about taking care of myself and about just self-care. So I wanted to just spend a few minutes on just self-care as judges. And this goes, and I'm going to extend this now that I'm talking about it. I'm going to extend it to court clerks, to anybody, if you're a large enough court to have a bailiff or an administrator or anybody that comes in contact with or hears the cases that come to your court system. What you do hear is you hear very sad stories. And sometimes you hear and see people at one of the worst situations that they are going to experience in their life, whether they are a victim of a violent crime or domestic violence, or they are the person who has committed that offense, or somebody who has a drug or alcohol addiction and they're coming in for something that they've done that they might not even remember having done because of their addiction. So these are really traumatic and sad times, and the worst, some of the worst moments in people's lives. And so we're all humans, and we see people at their worst and we feel sorry for them, or we feel sad, or we feel angry, or we feel helpless, or we feel like we want to jump out of our chair and help them, especially if they're related or family or a close, you're part of the community, so they're a part of your community as well. And as judges, we have to make hard decisions, especially for the folks who are not able, for a lot of different reasons, are not able to make the decisions for themselves. That's going to help bring them out of those situations that have brought them to the court. And you see their vulnerabilities. You see them at their angriest or their lowest. And coupled with all of this, you also, as the judge, cannot talk to anybody about how exposure or witnessing these things that other people are experiencing, how that's affecting you. And it affects us all in different ways. And so it's important to find ways, and each of us have different ways of taking care of ourselves. Some of us walk, run, which you'll never catch me doing, but some people love to run, and so that's what they'll do. Cooking, beading, hunting, solitude, going for a sweat, going out to for a long walk in the forest or the tundra, or any number of things, or sometimes just watching TV or reading a good book, or being with family, so there's a number of things, but whatever it is that makes you feel grounded and helps you to cope with the sadness or the anger or the trauma that you're experiencing at your job in the court, find that thing that you can do, and then make sure that you set aside enough time for yourself to do those. because if you don't, you will not last very long in this job or be able to do as well. You won't be doing yourself any good at all, and in the long run, you may also not be doing a good job. And the more you can be, the more you can take care of yourself, the better you're going to be at your job as the judge or the decision maker. And the more confident that you're going to be in making decisions, because you're going to be more in tune to listening to the folks that are appearing before you, and then be able to make those decisions. And I'm saying all this not just for the judges. Again, I really want to, for those of you who are court clerks or anybody that's in the court, whether it's taking in petitions and mailing out the paperwork, or sitting in the court taking notes or running the recording equipment, whatever that might be, you're being exposed to the same things that the judge is. You just don't always have the decision-making responsibility to do so. And then finally, I just want to, some of the stress on us as judges can be the lack of confidence or being afraid to make the wrong decision. And sometimes that either slows down the decision making or prevents you from making the best decision, because your confidence has been altered somewhat. So you just want to really feel confident, and if you're taking care of yourself, then half of the task is there. So you want to be able to do that. And listen to, you want to have your mind clear so that you can hear, and not just hear with your ears, but also hear with your eyes, watching. And I know sometimes it's, some of our courts are just over the phone now, but you can still hear and see with your eyes the folks as they're answering questions and providing you information. Okay, next slide. Enough on self-care.
That's the end of the slide.
Is that it? Oh, good.
Yep.
I'm glad I ended on that. So with that, thanks, Denise, for the slides and the beautiful picture. I love that graphic. You'll have to send that to me. I like it a lot. So with that, I think our idea was to, and I'm gonna pull up the questions here, and this is where, while I'm having the judges get their thoughts together, I'm gonna just see if we have about, I saw a number here a minute ago. I think there was about 23 or 24 people, 20 people it looks like on. Is there any questions about anything that I've said or any additions to what I've said?
And just a reminder to press *6 or the little microphone button on the computer if you're on the computer to unmute yourself.
Hi, it's Estelle. Sorry, I was late. I was having connectivity issues again. But I really am glad that you put that slide in there about self-care, Deb, because it's super, super important. Working in traditional medicine for all the years that I have, one of the things that that I've done with the people I work with, as well as other folks, in most of our dealings in the community, we always, say a prayer to kind of set the tone, and also ask for protection, as well as being able to say the right things and do the right things and come from a place that's really good. So asking for a prayer of protection before any of the proceedings for the day, and a prayer, kind of closing things out for me, it helps a lot. It helps me to keep the things that belong in the courtroom there in the courtroom and not take them home with me. When we leave ourselves open for some of those difficult things that we may hear, we can carry them around with us like extra baggage. And so we have to go in through our work knowing that there's going to be some things that we might not be comfortable bringing home to our families. So being able to kind of separate that with a prayer, it helps me. And I know it helps a lot of other people. So I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Thank you, Estelle. That was very good. Anybody else? Okay. So I think, and Denise, I hope this is okay, but I think what I want to do is just we've got 5 judges who are who have been designated to field these questions, and I've been asked to just moderate and ask these questions. So I'm going to have the 5 judges introduce themselves first, and then we'll start in. So let's start with Zita. Do you want to just introduce yourself and where you're from? Is Zita still with us?
Remember, Zita, if you're on the phone, you have to press *6.
Hello.
We can hear you. You could go ahead and introduce yourself and where you're from.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, this is Zita Chiki. I can say I got 2.5 years of work experience working as a tribal court judge. My name is Zita Chiki. Huingay student unga kalragunga atakasu ayaginaku anakasu gitugalga. My past parents are Henry Phillip and Angela Phillip. Both have passed on, and I have judges, five judges who I work with, a court clerk and a bailiff. And when there's a conflict of interest, I can also use the tribal council as judges. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Zita. Joe?
Am I on now?
There you are. Can hear you.
Yes. Joe Joseph, originally from Tun. And moved here. Wait, what does it go? And moved here, been here, and then how I actually started out was one of the tribal court judges passed away, and I was just there for a fill-in, and I was just there as a fill-in, and now I guess it's permanent now. For as long as I have been sitting there, I have been the youngest tribal court judge, but still, you know, conveying what I was taught, how I was taught, and whatnot. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Joe. Tama?
Mama, are you on the line?
Hello?
Hi.
Now we can hear you.
Hi. Okay. My name is Tama Tabakanak Moses. Originally from Cooper Bay, but I currently reside in Anchorage. My parents are Paul Moses and Lorraine Tabakanak Moses. I've been working in tribal court for close to 4 years.
Great, thank you. And Daisy May?
Afternoon.
There you are, we can hear you.
My name is Eugene. My Inupiaq name is Akhwanach. My English given name is Daisy May Pereira. I'm originally from Nunapitchok. Manito ko mang tre sa kaniwitaw. I reside in Bethel, Orochakamit Native Council, member of law, and as their tribal judge of 2 years. Hangayok ka, my both parents, Japhet J. Anvil, and my honorable mother, who was a tribal judge of 39 years, Carrie K. Anvil. I have 2 daughters, 1 adopted son, and only 1 granddaughter. So,
She's done.
Thank you, Daisy May. And I'm sure you'll have many more grandchildren.
I pray that I do.
Only one so far, right?
Only 1 so far. She's 3.5 years old.
Oh,
And I'm slowly grooming her to become a tribal judge someday.
perfect. We've got a family dynasty starting there, huh?
Yes.
All right. And then has Eugene Landlord joined us yet?
Eugene, you might have to press *6 to unmute yourself. I was told that he was able to connect.
Hello?
There he is.
Hi.
Hello?
We can hear you. Go ahead, Eugene.
You might have pressed *6 again.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Okay. I'll start over again. My name is Eugene Landlord. I'm originally from Mountain Village, but I currently live in Anchorage because of the housing situation at Mountain Village, like in any other villages in the YK Delta. I'm in my 10th term as a tribal judge, and like Joe, I was appointed by our tribal administrator because we had 2 elder judges that male judges that had passed on, and one of them was in that terrible plane crash that happened at St. Mary's Airport. And at first, I did not want to become a tribal judge because I knew that I would lose a lot of so-called friends because of the responsibilities as a tribal judge to oversee our people. And the tribal administrator hounded me for about 2 months, and I kept saying no, and finally I got tired of her keep calling me on a weekly basis, and I finally said yes. And I was appointed as a tribal judge at the age of 53, and for the last 9 years, I was only the male judge in our tribal justice system. And it was a very humbling and learning experience in these last 10 years, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into. But thank you, thank God for our tribal council. They're the ones that developed the Constitution to govern our own people, and they had also developed a tribal justice code. And these tribal codes include the judicial code, children's code, elder protection code, alcohol code, and they're in the drafting part of developing a domestic code. And once that is completed, they're also going to look into developing sexual assault code. It's been a very I study the judicial code, and especially with the children's, that is what we mainly tackle in our tribal justice system. And I study the children's code, and that really helped a lot. You know, one of our male judges from our past always stipulated, just use common sense. And I've always held it to my heart, and he was one of the people that I respected growing up as a man, and also my late mother, Maria Kauchuk, was also tribal judge, and I had learned a lot from her experience as being the sole provider for our family. I come from a large family, and our father died at the age of 12, and she always been very resilient in holding our family together, and that's where I get most of my experience is from our late mother, and learning to use common sense. I have to say that one of the things I always paid for was what is that word? It starts with a D. I can't remember it, but I thank you for AVCP Tribal Justice System for choosing me as a panel judge, and I know that our community is not part of AVC, but I'm very humbled that I was asked to be part of this Tribal Judges Conference. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Eugene. So I'm going to skip around. I know we've got a little less than an hour left, and I want to get to some of these questions. So I may skip around just a little bit, but I'm going to go through and ask the question. If you need me to repeat the question, I will be happy to. And after each question, I'll open up the floor for any questions or additional comments, okay? So I'm going to first start at the top of the list with Zita. And the first question we're going to ask is, and discuss is, you have to hear hard cases that involves protection orders for, that's for domestic violence. What is your approach in addressing this matter and keeping the victims safe? Zita, let's have you go first.
You may have to unmute yourself, Zita, with *6.
And while she's if there's any question that any of the judges wants to pass on, you're welcome to do that too. Don't feel pressured. Go ahead, Zita.
Is that number 2 question? What was
Yes.
the question? When
Number
we
two.
mute our button, yeah, we don't get to hear the question.
Oh, no. So it's number 2. You have to hear a hard case that involves protective orders. What is your approach in addressing this matter and in keeping victims safe?
I think first of all is safety. If there's children involved, is safety of the children. If we need to remove the children and put them into a relative placement, that's what we'll do. Protective orders, we have not really done that. I know when I got in, they had tried that with an individual who had a history of threatening lives, and it was a total of a lot of things, damages and so forth. So since he did not want to follow the orders, they had to banish him. They call it a temporary banish out of the community because safety of the people, of their lives were in danger, and with treatment recommendations. Since I got on, I've not seen any progress on the recommendations, so the case is still open, and but working with the city council on protective orders, they are to follow that, because the law, this law, protective order law, for whether it be the Women's Violence Act, has to be followed, and we have to keep the individual protected. So whether you remove the individual from the home or either the perpetrator or the victim, and keeping them safe is number one for children, and for them it could be a male, female, or so that's what I do.
Okay, great. Thank you. Joseph, do you want me to read the question again? Joe?
Hello.
There you are. We're on question 2. Do you want me to read the question for you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you have to hear hard cases that involve protective orders. What is your approach in addressing this matter and in keeping the victim safe?
Okay. Actually, I haven't really heard a case about domestic violence up yet, but Darlene may have. That might be a Darlene question, but according to our cultural traditions and our policies, our first priority is to protect our tribal members, starting with the elders, our children, and our people. So if the other party is not tribally enrolled, he will be asked to leave. He will be asked to leave. He or she will be asked to leave the community for a temporary thing. But if it continues on, it gets longer. And Darlene should be able to answer the rest of it because she's been there for the last almost 30 years. So Darlene, you can have the floor.
Darlene, Joe is putting you on the spot.
On those protective orders, if we need to have an emergency court hearing, we set that up right away. And if the victim is too scared, we don't invite the person that's hurting them, like a ex parte case. And then, if possible, they could talk to the person by phone too. So the victim is our first priority to protect. And after the temporary protective order is done, we'll set up another hearing. So we hear from all of the people involved. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Darlene. Tama, do you want to tackle the question number 2?
Hi, it's Tama.
Tama, sorry. Thank you for correcting me.
So there are many challenges residing in a small community where people know one another. So we ensure that the health, safety, and welfare of the defendant is prioritized. These are factors that set in first consideration to have minimal exploitation with the respondent to prevent any triggers or issues from occurring. So we offer telephone services or video if the equipment is there, so we can provide safe spaces.
Okay, thank you. Daisy May, do you want to tackle this question as well?
Queenie takama ukuk ay pakutsikwas yuk aknachikuni asamak awi knachkakunak rumenun awiyut kakaluk umiyot ktunga chalisu mannakhani awiyuchi makan maskutarchigana taman chaknaknaskiyutn kchagaluko onakun textakun tamana taring kagaluko taring riskata taring kchaksluki yuktun kantukata yuktun kalagusluki kasatun sukingan kalaktlakata kasatun sutaringen kchaksluki. In English, in a difficult case surrounding protective orders, my approach in addressing this matter is to keep the victim safe. In order to keep the victim safe, it is critical to implement the protective order. Protective orders are necessary and highly beneficial in a lot of abusive relationships. Explain the process to both parties to clearly understand the premature each party has to adhere to. Protective orders are civil matters. Therefore, if a person is served with a protective order, have them clearly understand it is not a criminal charge and they will not have a criminal record. Ilait alinga satu ta protective order am kakuktua kamung itsta katakay kusuting kwasamak kalikat minguchi makkauluting at kata atchatnu. However, protective orders often go hand in hand with criminal matters. Regardless of the reason, it is important for an individual to seek counsel, whether it be an elder or a tribal lawyer, encouraging the victim to file or request for one. Explain very thoroughly should there be any violation of the order, simply by, for example, sending text, sending messages through family, friends, buddies, or by email. What the consequences can be should there be a violation. And even in that, it can even arise to the concept of the thought of being charged criminally. They need to clearly understand this. Protective order is an order that has to be enforced, monitored very closely. And also in discussion with the two parties, have them clearly understand how this also affects the family unit as a whole and the community. Encourage and avoid any interceptions from any individual to not interfere in any of the order. I state this very closely and very strongly because I am aware of incidences where relatives, family members tend to become or try to become involved in much discussions, even through layers of people. We have to stand astute and alert when this type of communication is coming to our level, and to approach and respond in a very respectful, honorable manner to the individuals that are trying to become involved, and to simply explain why they cannot violate the protective order. Also, in regards to the priority that I hold dear to my heart, when it comes to any case, this matter is very confidential. It's a confidential process that cannot be shared to any other party.
Thank you
So-
so much. Oh, sorry, Daisy May, were you done?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Denise, I hope it's okay, and for the panel of judges, I know we're looking at just 30 more minutes of our time, and so if it's all right with everybody, I'd like to skip around a little bit to be able to cover as many of these questions as we can, and also have and hear from all the judges from their perspective. So
That's completely
Denise,
fine,
is that
Deborah.
okay? So Eugene, I want to call on you next, and I'm going to give you a new question. Okay. So the question for you is, what is your best piece of advice for tribal court judges? Are you
Hello?
still? Yep, there you are, Eugene. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, thank you. At the beginning of my period of being a tribal judge, I heard a lot of child custody disputes between both parents, and we heard a lot of horrific stuff that occurred in the home, especially with domestic violence. And at first, I took it very personally because of the lack of experience, and I would get personally involved in each case, and that itself really took a lot out of me mentally and emotionally, because once we completed a hearing, I would be totally exhausted, and when I got home, I would sleep for 2 or 3 hours. And I really had a hard time with because with child, especially with child custody cases, because we know our village residents, and I had to learn to not take it personally and just keep it professional and just look out for the best interest of the children's sake. And once I started practicing that and just look at the facts and at a professional level, it made a really big difference in our decision making. And it's a learning process to not to get personally involved with especially with child custody cases, because sometimes those are the most hardest cases to deal with. And my the new judges that come into our tribal court system, we meet frequently, and one of the things I tell them is not to take court cases personally, or it's gonna wear you out, and just concentrate on the facts and the best interest of said children, or sometimes our elders. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Zita, do you want to answer the same question? What is your best piece of advice for tribal court judges?
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say that you take it case by case. Like that, is it Eugene was saying that we don't take the case personally. It can affect us. So as I'm teaching my tribal court clerk, that these are personal cases we're hearing, that each case is different, and that we take it one case at a time. And some may be hard, some may be easy, but that we do our best in respecting them, having our judges utilize cultural teachings or connections to becoming healthy again. And to keep our cases that you hear confidential. There's people out there when you walk out the door that will ask, but then you let them know, put your foot down and let them know this is confidential information. You know that we have to respect that. We have to respect the families' issues in the court, and to take care of yourself. If you don't know the answer, it's okay to live in where you don't know the answer. Not in court, but you get calls. You get calls from all the not all the, but some community members who give you the answers that you know. And if you don't know the answer, you can let them know that I can call you back and give you the information that I found out. Mm-hmm. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And Joseph, let's go on to the next question, which is, how do you interact with members of your community when you're a tribal court judge?
No, I think you need to
Yes,
unmute
I am
yourself.
here.
Oh, there you are.
There he is.
Okay, I'm having trouble with my phone here. What was the question again?
So my question is, the next question is, how do you interact with members of your community while you're sitting as a tribal court judge?
How do I interact with my community?
Mm-hmm.
Number one thing is, being a role model to the whole community, to your elders, to your children, community, all the community. And then being a role model is, not, like if you hear a case in the court, you leave it at the court. And then you interact like you've always interacted with your people. You don't change. You don't hold grudges or anything. Everything you do, everything that happens in the tribal court, you leave it at the court. And then, when you get out of the courthouse or whatever you get out of, wherever you hold your court case, you just be back to normal again. How you interact with your people, because you don't want to feed. You do not want to feed. What you heard, because if you keep thinking about it and you keep feeding it, and then when the person holy cow, what was that? The person that was in court, if you change face to that person, you're just feeding him for the next thing to happen. You don't change face. You don't change, you're back to your when you get out of court, you're back to your normal self of how you interact with people. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to move on to, and I know the judges have these questions in front of them. So the question 5, Tama, what motivates you in your role as a tribal court judge? Why do you do what you do?
Hi, it's pronounced Tama.
Tama.
So there isn't a single reason for motivation. I think it's just the feeling of wanting community to be connected again, and for that to occur, to it gives a fulfilling feeling of completion. Yeah, that's.
Okay, thank you. Daisy Mae, do you want to tackle this question as well?
What motivates me in my role as a tribal judge is to be a part of a team, whether it's your staff, court staff, your organizational staff, and to be a process, a part of a process to promote restoration of families, children, and elders. So,
thank you. Okay, I'm going to skip down to the very last question, which is
Hello,
actually,
can I just one thing? This is Eugene.
oh, Eugene, go ahead.
Yes, what motivates me for being a tribal judge? We all know that state courts fail our people, especially with revolving door with, especially when it comes to domestic violence. They slap their wrist and they incarcerate them for a certain amount of time with no real counseling or anything like that. One of the differences is between a state court and tribal court is we have the ability to monitor our people at a personal level, and we practice restorative justice, and that really makes a really big difference with our people, because we put safeguards in there to say we put a person for counseling, and we ask for proof they completed their program, and that'll sometimes it'll help to allow certain members to come back in our community. I really like being a tribal judge because we have the opportunity to change a person's life. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I got another one here.
Who is that?
This is Joe.
Hi, Joe.
Hi. You know, the other thing too is, you know, the court that we have is, you know, for the people to live in harmony with each other, and also to live in harmony with the land and your surroundings. Bayana.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to throw this last question out for anybody who wants to answer it. And I'm really excited to hear what your responses are. And it's question number 7. How do you, and this is in your decisions or in your court somehow, how do you tie culture into your court or your decisions? Who would like to tackle that one first?
I can tackle it.
Okay, go ahead.
Hello?
I can.
So I've got Daisy May. Go ahead.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
I think I muted myself and unmuted myself and muted myself.
Okay, you're unmuted now.
Thank you. Thank you for the floor there, Honorable Deborah. I tend to follow more traditional practices and our values, because practices and values can differ in every community, in my mind, but what states within our Constitution, and by following our own Constitution, by encouraging the customs and our traditions, and helping our membership to look at understanding the importance of implementing cultural values when speaking with an individual, both English or Yupik. So therefore, with that being said, I would think, especially with the younger generation, because their generation is quite different from my time. I'm 67 years old. And I look back, I can recall back then as a child, when I was 6 years old, we had curfew in our community. First time we ever had curfew, the word curfew, we had no knowledge what it was. And it was the month of December, and we were playing outside with the moon shining on top of our noses, 60 below weather. Well, the village police approached we, the kids. And during that time, we had no clue that we were in violation of the curfew. And I remember we all started running home, and I was the last person to reach my home. The next day, the elders in my community, Nunapitcho, came to my grandmother and my parents and told them, we need to sit down with your daughter. We're going to speak with you. It's important to follow the laws of your community. And I can recall, and it's different from my time, and I never forgot, I had to dump every single household honey bucket as my form of awakening that I shall never violate the curfew. But in today's time, it's so different. In today's time, we as judges, and I as a judge, I have to be very creative in my mind and to look at the weaknesses and strengths of an individual and promote taking the side of how about engaging yourself in subsistence activities or engaging yourself in chopping wood for an elder or engaging yourself in shoveling snow from someone who may be disabled or someone who might have a medical appointment that cannot walk or speak in English, be a translator, be an interpreter. Those are just my thoughts. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Do any of the other judges want to tackle the question, how do you tie culture into your court?
This is Rita. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, in 2005 and 6, I worked as a tribal court administrator, and my judges were fluent Yupik speakers. We had our courts in Yupik. We had a translator that translated from Yupik to English. And after an incident, I took my time off and we came back to tribal court administration back last year in March. Now I work with English-speaking judges. All my elders that I used to work with have passed on. Anyways, the missing link I saw in these tribal court hearings were elder counselors and elder counseling. And since there was no budget for that, I requested from the CP and BIA for that to happen. Now that it's been approved, my dream, or not dream, I don't know, the one that was instilled in me, that we can use our tribal culture activities as treatment. And when they ask how, you can connect couples and let them help an elder in a home and help them, whether it be cutting moose up and talk to them. You can connect your children to providers, and instead of putting them down, encouraging them to do good. So I really believe that using our culture is, you can have the elder talk to it's a teaching tool. If I can include a young female that's in trouble and use the method of cutting fish. When we first cut fish, we make mistakes. And letting them know that, and using that as an example, but to do better and talk to them in a good and gentle way, that even though they make mistakes the first time, it's okay, but to try better. And if you keep trying pretty soon that dried fish you're trying to make will be the best dried fish you can make. And relate it back to the individual. That in life we make mistakes, but that if we keep trying to do better and keep trying to do better, we'll someday become well again. And my motivation for keep coming back to work comes from what I see in my family. I was unfortunate to live raised in a domestic violence, alcohol abuse home, but I use that as a strength that these children now we can help them. I couldn't be helped, my brother couldn't be helped, he was foster home after foster home, but these children now can be helped using our traditional judges and using our resources within the community, that they can become healthy again. Even though the safety of the children come first, that the parents too can become healthy again, and giving them that hope.
Thank you. And I know that's one thing that the Western courts definitely don't understand, is that cultural activity is so healing and helps people heal from the trauma that they've experienced. Denise, was that you?
That was me. I was just trying to say that I think Eugene was trying to provide an answer. I heard him a little bit earlier, so I wanted to give Eugene a chance to provide his answer too.
Eugene, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, this is Eugene, Landlord.
Mm-hmm.
I think community work service and question number 7 ties in together for our community. You know, since the coronavirus pandemic started, before it started, part of the punishment or factors was, especially with the alcohol code, they have to do so many hours depending on the if they're first, second, or third violation. We're using a monetary scale to find our community members and try to be lenient as possible to deter them from their bad behavior. But since pandemic started, we changed it to doing cultural activities. In the summertime, springtime, we would encourage log gathering, and mannequin activities, and as a part of their punishment is to give them out to especially our elders and some of the people that have no means of doing subsistence activities. And we also encourage in the summertime with same with salmon, but unfortunately these last few years there's been a really last summer our people were not able to do even subsistence activities. And then in the fall time, part of the community work service was either geese hunting or moose hunting, or sometimes even black bear. And also in the wintertime was gathering logs for our elders and the ones that had no means of transportation. And also that includes dumping trash and packing water throughout the whole year. And one of the things we were doing before pre-pandemic was insured in. They must. We had frequent speakers and entities to come into our community and sponsor wellness-related activities, and we put those in our court orders, and because of the pandemic, we quit doing. But we're trying to find ways and means to do it telephonically till this pandemic is over. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I've lost count. Has everybody had a chance to answer this last question?
I have one.
Go ahead.
When this court started, or it started a long time ago, but when I first got in, and we had an elder in there. Well, for me, they're all elders that are in the court system right now, the court judges that we have. And, the idea came up to have, the pictures of elders within our courthouse. And we do have them. And here's a point that, having pictures, here's a point of having pictures in the elders in the courthouse is, if a person comes in and he sees a certain elder, a picture of a certain elder that gave him advice, just to be reminded of that. And it helps, because when I go in and I see a picture of John Phillips Sr., I am reminded of the advice that he was given while I was serving as a judge with him. And it helps. Bueno.
Yes. Good. This has been great. You guys are I could listen to you all day. So has everybody had a chance to comment on this last question? I was listening so intently, I lost track. Okay. So Denise, we have about 4 or 5 minutes left. Do you want to open up the floor for any questions from our other participants, or do you have closing remarks that you need time to do?
So I do want to open the floor for our participants, and there was a question in the chat. Costin says, Your Honor, I'm not Native, but I'm looking to see if there are ways I can support any of the tribes near Bethel, Alaska. I work for a tribe near Bethel for almost a year during the pandemic and was trained as a counselor in DV violations. Please advise your recommendations. I will go onto the website for additional details. I was able to attend this training in the previous session. Thank you so much. So Costin is looking for ways that she can support tribes near Bethel. Costin, so I'm going to actually drop into the chat the tribal justice contact information. If you want to reach out to our department, we're very much willing and able to help you with any ways that you're able to assist. I think that it would be very beneficial for you to possibly have a meeting with our department in ways that you could help our tribes around Bethel. I think that.
Yep, that would be the best way.
And then I do.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I did want to open the floor for questions or comments to either Judge O'Gara or any of our panelist judges. So if you are on the phone, please press *6, or if you're on the computer, press the little microphone button at the top right-hand area of your screen. So a call for questions or comments.
Joe here.
Hello. Go ahead, Joe.
Oh, I'm sorry. I do have a question because for all the panelist judges, because interacting with interacting with
I'm on the phone.
Interacting with the community members, like as a tribal council president, I have an elder here who calls me like at least once a month, or at least once every couple months, and gives me advice on leadership. And the people that have been in court, in your court cases, do you do that, or how are you handling that? Not to pass judgment, but to encourage. How often are you calling your the people that were in court to encourage them to do better?
So that question was to any of the panelists. So anybody can jump in, or I can jump in.
I think one of the ways that that can be done is having a case review with the judges, and calling them, whether it be a follow-up with the family, and see where they're at, and if it's not working, try something else. That's what we're doing. We're trying. Did you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we heard you.
And then I would just add to that if you are in a small enough court that there's only one judge, so you don't have another judge that you can talk to, you can almost always talk to your court clerk, or call up a neighboring judge from a close by village to just consult or talk over what's happening and get advice, or sometimes just a person to talk to. But talking about something out loud helps too, even if they don't have the answers for you. Any other questions? Okay, go ahead.
Another question dropped in the chat. It says, how do you work with people that you have a conflict of interest with? So this is for any of the panelists or for you, Judge O'Gara.
Hello, this is Eugene.
Hi, Eugene. Go ahead.
Yes, we have a panel of 6 judges. We have a panel of 6 judges in our community. And sometimes it's really hard to get 3 judges because they're busy doing sometimes subsistence activities. When my mother passed away 5 years ago, I was asked to hear one of my I was asked to hear a child custody case that involved my niece. And the only way I told them that I was gonna steer the case was not be part of the decision-making process, but I was able to moderate, being the presiding judge, and moderate the whole process. And to protect myself, I asked the deputy director for our tribe to be present, so I would not violate the conflict of interest portion of the due process. And it was a really hard case to deal with because we had just lost our mom, and they had asked me to be the presiding judge, and this involved family. And thank God I have one of the things I prayed. I just remember that word was discernment, to know the difference from right and wrong, and that made a really big difference when I was able to preside over this complicated child custody case. And in our judicial code, all you need is 2 judges to make a valid decision, and I took that to heart and did not violate the conflict of interest case. Thank you.
This is Rita from Malakal. I have the judges review the petitions, and if they feel that if they have conflict and their interest, they let me know. If it's a truancy case, we have 2 judges that sit from the school. They don't even hear the case because they work there and they interact with the children at the school. So it's all based on your if you can't be impartial and make this like Eugene was saying, making the right decision for the team, then for the parents, then the judge withdraws from the petition. Thank you.
This is Daisy May.
Hey, Daisy May. Go ahead.
Yes. If I experience or encounter an issue that is a conflict of interest on either side of the party, or even with myself as a judge, if they're related to me or family member, I immediately request to be recused. And to recuse myself, it's in compliance with the judicial conduct that I have to always remind myself in our cases, to always carry out the thoughts we know at the beginning, especially during case review, if we're related or not. So with that being said, I have found that to be very encouraging, because there's others that can handle the case. And to recuse with respect and to explain why I cannot participate in any deliberation or any discussion, because it is difficult to remain impartial when it comes to any relation or any family member. If I was placed in a situation of an emergency, I would have another judge come with me so that the judge can handle the case.
Mm-hmm. So I'll
autonomously. Go ahead.
Sorry, Daisy May, go ahead and finish.
Autonomously trying to handle a case in a conflict case, it's not easy. It's very difficult, but we can make it with our own set of frame of mind. We can do it. We can handle this, and to continuously empower ourselves to be able to say, I cannot handle this case because I'm closely related to you, and explain what's expected in order for I to sit and make a sound decision. It would behoove and be for the best interest of an individual, so that I do not impact and hurt the individual in a wrongful manner. Thank you.
I'll just add to what Daisy May was saying, that and I think that's the right way to handle it, is if there's any kind of relationship family or through marriage to go ahead and recuse. And if you have to call in a judge from a neighboring community because you don't have multiple judges in your court, then I think that's what you do. And even if you, as the judge, think that you are confident that you can be fair and impartial in your deliberation, even if they are relatives that are coming in, it's still best practice to recuse yourself, because the appearance of you being related to them and not being fair tarnishes the integrity of the court, the whole system, not just you, but the whole system. So it's always good practice to not put yourself in that position and go ahead and do what Daisy May was suggesting, and to recuse yourself. And if you don't already have a judicial code of conduct, it's always good to start looking into having one, because the situations where recusal should be done is outlined in that document, in that policy. Back to you, Denise. We've gone over time.
Thank you, Deborah. I know I apologize, everybody, and I thank you for everybody that's staying on the line right now. I know we've gone over time a little bit, and anybody who has dropped off will be able to view this recording on the AVCP either YouTube page or the AVCP website. So because of that, I just, I want to end this in a good way. I wanted to send a great big thank you to all the presenters and the tribal justice staff who are involved with planning this training series, and a big thank you to all of our participants for joining us for the past 10 weeks. I can't believe it's done. It went by faster than I thought it would. As I've said before, these trainings were recorded. They'll be made available on the AVCP website and YouTube page for future viewing. AVCP Tribal Justice always welcomes phone calls or emails. I think there has been a glitch with our phones, but the 543-8550 will put you into contact with our department, or the email address tribal-justice@avcp.org will email all of us. So I would like to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, Happy Holidays. And again, thank you very much, everyone, for your hard work and your important role you play in your tribal court, your tribal justice system. And I wish a great rest of your day and a very Happy New Year, great rest of 2021. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you to all the staff, all your staff.
You're very welcome. Thank you for always joining us. Thanks, Joe. Thank you, everyone.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night. Good night.